What's up, everybody? Welcome to On the Record, a punk music podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Newman, alongside Ben Brennan. What's going on, Ben?
You know, thriving and um,
Thriving and vibing.
vibing. Yeah, that's a better
There you
way
go.
to say.
All right. Well, welcome. On the Record is a fan podcast where we discuss the Fat Records catalog album by album, side by side, chronologically. We have no true music expertise. We're just some friends shooting the shit about albums we loved growing up. Ben, I'm looking forward to talking to you about Strung Out's Another Day in Paradise. But first, can you remind me why we decided to talk in detail about the Fat Wreck catalog?
Well, it provides a really stable format for this podcast. We always know what we're going to record next. It's a very manageable job.
It's very true.
All right, so we're going to go through the liner notes here. Today we're talking about Strung Out's Another Day in Paradise. It was released on a very important day, May 15th, in 1994. The band at this time...
Wait. Why is it important?
Well, an American saint was born on that day. Me.
Oh, that's right. Very notable. What were you, 8? You're 8 years old?
Yeah, I was 8 years old. I turned 8 when this came out. I remember that being a pretty good birthday. Don't remember what I got, but maybe some Max Mini stuff.
I have a hard time remembering birthdays, personally. I remember, maybe a couple.
I may have gotten Link's Awakening for that birthday, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, that's a good gift.
Yeah. All right, so the band lineup here is Jason Cruz on vocals, Jake Kiley on guitar, Rob Ramos on guitar, Jim Cherry on bass, and Jordan Burns on drum. If you guessed that this was recorded at West Beach Recorders, you guessed right. It was engineered by Don Cameron and produced by Fat Michael.
Surprise, surprise.
Let's talk about side one then.
All right. So the first thing I want to say here is I have not listened to this record in a very, very long time. And a big part of that was because the original version of this album, I have a copy of this record in my parents' house back in Ohio. I maybe listened to it 5 or 6 times. It's definitely under 10 times that I listened to this thing. And it was am I remembering this correctly? The mastering on this thing was atrocious. It was horrible.
Yeah, I remember it sounding like shit. I kind of remember that I pretty much only listened to the songs on this that were on Live in a Dive, and I think I was probably just more likely to listen to the Live in a Dive versions too.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, coming back to this and seeing that it's been remastered, I didn't have any kind of real expectations here. But this is like getting a new old album. It sounds so much better from what I remember it sounding like. It's crazy how much better it sounds. So a huge upgrade, and it actually allowed me to get into it. Because I had just pretty much ignored it. And because I absolutely favored the next record, which is one of my all-time favorite Fat Wreck releases. And yeah, I don't know what it is that how you felt?
Yeah, this, I remember it sounding like such a step down from Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues. And this time it sounded like, oh yeah, it makes sense that they're going to make that record next, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not quite as good, but it's not as much of a step up as it seemed when we were younger.
Yeah, it blew my mind listening to Another Day in Paradise and then Suburban Teenage. I was just like wow, this is just radically so much better. But now that it's been remastered, I am really pleasantly surprised by it. It's actually a really good record. Just in terms of just how fun it is to listen to. I mean, the speed that they're known for is already there. And I just really appreciate that none of these songs overstay their welcome. Nothing breaks the 3-minute mark, which is so, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it's key. Like I
Yeah,
think that these
they're all
songs,
very short. Yeah, it's
yeah,
great.
if some of these songs had gone on longer, I think it would have worn out its welcome. But because it's so short, I think it just makes it a really like easy record and fun record to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it maybe could have used like one or two less songs.
Yeah.
Um, because I did feel like I was starting to lose steam towards the end of the record. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and we'll obviously get to that, but
yeah,
I do agree. Um, but Strung Out, they had been around since I think they formed in was like 89 or something like
So
that.
I've seen three different answers to this.
Oh, really?
In looking into their early days. So, like it's weird. I think that the Wikipedia page at one point says they were formed in 1990, and then like shortly after that says they were formed in 1989. And then in that interview I sent you with Jake Kiley, he's saying that they didn't really form until 1991.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
yeah.
I
It
didn't really understand that, but my guess is that they were probably like kind of a nebulous thing, but just didn't really get
right.
serious until 91.
Probably. Um, I think a lot of these bands, especially that we're talking about recently, are a lot of them are going to be guys that they knew each other, they grew up together, and they formed bands together. Like it's Propaganda did that, Lagwagon did that. Uh, so um, I'm not really that surprised when there's not always like a hard sort of time frame for when they really formed. But I think it took them, a few years before they got around to recording a record, and they're much better for it. I mean, because they kind of come into this fully formed for the most part. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, their style changes a lot, in the next like 30 years or whatever, obviously. But coming into this record, they like all the pieces are there. Like the technical abilities are insane. They're so fast and they're so like good.
Hmm.
um and they've got sort of their on this one they've got their like there's flashes of originality kind of coming through, but I think a lot of their influences, which are mainly Descendants and surprise surprise Bad Religion, definitely come through. And and then musically it's like uh definitely like a Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth influence to the on the metal side of things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but there, I don't know. Could you find anybody else from this time period that was playing like like punk music through the filter of like thrash and speed metal? Because I just couldn't really think of anything um, that to
Mm.
really directly compare Strung Out to. Like it seems like a very niche style that they created almost.
So, not in the way that they're doing it for sure. Nobody's
Right.
doing like kind of like pop punk mixed with that. Like there are
Yeah.
certainly like in the more hardcore spectrum of things, bands that are, in that, you have the like New York crossover and stuff like that, and then you have crossover
Yeah.
pretty much all over the country, really, which had been around for a bit. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that at least like the more West Coast crossover thrash bands were probably also a big influence on these guys. But yeah, like kind of pop punk and really fast metal together was not I don't think that common of a thing. Um,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but it just it definitely it feels like it's doing its own thing, um, and I think it's all better for it. It definitely like they evolve the style quite a bit as time goes on, um, but at this point it's already pretty good. So. Where do you want to start on side one? I mean, we can just start at the top, just because I think
Yeah.
population
I-
control. It pretty much right off the bat, they establish a theme that you see run throughout probably all of their records at this point. Um, because Jason Cruz has got a problem with media, and you're going to hear about it. He talks. He tends to have at least one song per record about this exact topic. It's just a general sort of song about media influence and the negative effects on people. It's not very subtle, and it's kind of laden with dramatic angst, but it's not bad. The song itself is pretty good. I like it.
Oh yeah, it fucking shreds. I remember liking this song a lot in high school. Again, this is one of the only songs off this record I found myself listening to with any regularity before now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Wait, they did this one on?
I think this is definitely on Live and a Dive. I think this
it is.
And maybe In Harm's Way as well.
Yeah, this one and In Harm's Way are both on there for sure.
So Population Control, though, do you know, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that was actually written by the lyrics to that one are actually written by Jim Cherry. No, I lied.
Never mind. I think
In Harm's Way, the lyrics were written by Jim Cherry, and Lost.
Right. And he might have had one other one too.
Mad World.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think generally Population Control definitely feels like a Jason Cruz joint to me.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised, though. I mean, based off the Zero Down record, if it was a Jim Cherry song.
Oh yeah, I mean, and then you can also look at Pulley as well, because he wrote stuff for Pulley. But yeah, it's Population Control. It's a good song. It's I think one of the highlights.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of my favorites on the record. So Lost. Yeah, so Lost is again another pretty common, I guess, strung out song topic that pops up, right? Which is this kind of it's not like when we talked about Propaganda, their political songs tended to be very specific.
Very specific.
Like, whereas like with Strung Out, these songs tend to, I think, be much like it's about like kind of the decay of America that kind of started in late 70s, early 80s and was continuing on through the 90s. It's much more from an emotional perspective, though, right? It's not like the specifics of the politics behind it. It is very much just kind of the emotions that are tied to it.
Yeah. It's just kind of general commentary on, the promised American dream fading. And well, boy, got some bad news for him in the future. But yeah, I think I totally agree. It is definitely more of an emotional place, and I think that the line "and our leaders don't know what to do," it definitely it definitely feels like it's coming from an emotional place, not.
It reminds me a lot of the way kind of the tone, even, or the message of this guy that's this documentarian from the UK named Adam Curtis, and his documentaries aren't necessarily meant to be like a true the way he chooses to emphasize things in history is not necessarily what most experts would agree is correct, but what he's going for is telling like an emotional history of events.
Right. I do remember. Yeah, I watched a little bit of the first one. How many? It's like a series, right?
Yeah, there's 6 parts to it. The most recent one, Can't Get You Out of My Head. And the really funny thing is that like his main point throughout that entire thing is our leaders have no fucking clue what to do. So, I as I was listening to this, I had kind of just gotten the vibe, just like it was like, oh, they're painting with like emotional brushstrokes to talk about like politics here, which is similar to the way that he works. And then it's kind of interesting that they're kind of back in '94 coming to the same conclusion.
Yeah. But Lost, like, I like the song. I think it's got a really cool guitar solo. And I mean, I have no idea really whether this is true, but like it just something about the guitar solo sort of like it almost could have been like pulled from the Star Spangled Banner, which would have been a really cool idea. If that is where they pulled part of it, like it's not, there's not enough there for you to really make I mean, I can't really tell, but like there's something about it that sort of reminds me of it. And I think it's a nice touch. Like if it's true or not, it's a nice touch either way.
Well, remember, Josh pointed out to us with the Propaganda song.
Right.
I forget which one it is at the moment, but it ends with like the "O Canada" at the end. So that idea, at the very least, been in this recording studio at one point. I liked the song "Drag Me Down" quite a bit. At least, like, it sounds great. It sounds kind of like something they would have done, like maybe even past, like off of "Twisted by Design" or something like that. To me, and then we have another common topic of strung out songs, which is just kind of these toxic and destructive relationships. Which
yeah, this one, all I have written down here on my notes is it's catchy, it's fun, and it's about self-destruction with friends. But let's talk about In Harm's Way, which I think is definitely one of the album highlights. You know, and even if you're not like the super like strung out fan, you'd probably recognize this song anyway, if you know, because I think this was on the first Fat Music for Fat People.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was definitely on. I mean, it was one of the early ones. It was definitely on one of the comps. And I think that it was a really good pick for that because this song stands out for a bunch of different reasons. It's really dynamic. Like the song's constantly changing. Like every part of it is somehow different, but it all fits together really well. And so I think it's a really good like indication of like how good they really are and how much potential is there, and you can see it in this song in particular. Plus it has the like the probably the weirdest like bit in any song on this record, and it's that strange upstroke that they do. That's really like probably the most unique moment from the song, because like you don't really ever hear them do that anywhere else, maybe ever.
Yeah, I think that's. Actually, that reminds me now. As a very, very young guy who was checking out Strung Out, who was much more into ska than I am now, I originally was very turned off by them because they weren't a ska band. Because the name Strung Out to me seemed like it would have been perfect. I guess because of like the upstroking or something. I don't know. I just like looked at that logo. I was like, that's definitely a ska band.
What an interesting element to have, that they could have added to the band. They just, had some horns. Strung Out could have been truly wild.
Yeah.
And then, the lyrics, I think, honestly, they could have been written like now, and they'd still be true. Maybe even more so.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so In Harm's Way is definitely, I would say, one of the absolute highlights of this record.
For sure. I think it gets like I would say that's one of the songs that gets really close to how good they are on Suburban whatever.
Yeah,
I say the whole name every time we talk about it.
Yeah, you can shorten it. It's all good. All right. Well, I really want to talk about the next track, Talking to Myself. This is probably my like biggest surprise song that I found on this record, because most of these songs I hadn't really given that much of a chance. It has like the lyrics are probably the least like serious out of all of these songs, because it's just about getting stoned and to get away from your problems. But it has a heavy Descendants vibe. And I really like it. It's got those fast, bouncy guitars, and it's I think it's like under 2 minutes. it's fun. And I love that pause that he takes every time when he before he says, "Now I'm stoned." There's like a nice cadence to the way the song works. It's great.
I mean, I definitely thought that the song was a good song, like musically. I kind of thought that the topic was. I mean, this is probably the most Fat Records song on the entire album. I would say, like, if you know, if you would stereotype Fat Records, right?
Sure.
Um,
I mean, it makes sense. Like that's another. The lyrics are another reason why I definitely it feels heavy Descendants influence.
yeah.
Because it's just not that. It's not like a super serious topic at all. Unlike a lot of these other songs. But I thought it was this a really fun track. And this is my personal pick for, I guess, like the most surprising new song that I like to go back to.
What did
For
you think about Broken?
so much palm muting. Oh my god. This like to me it's sort of it something about it reminds me of it's probably the vocal delivery. It reminds me of Ozzy Osbourne.
I wrote that.
Yeah,
It's like,
he's
it's the,
definitely channeling Ozzy when it comes to the way he's drawing out some of the when he says, whatever. There's a couple different words that rhyme, but like when mind, it recalls War Pigs, Black
yeah,
Sabbath.
yeah.
Um, yeah, like it's good, it's fun.
I thought it was really interesting, like, because it is very different in some ways from like everything else on the record. Um,
Yeah,
it kind of, yeah. Um,
it does. It did sort of feel like almost like Black Sabbath on like fast forward.
yeah, yeah, for sure. You got that.
Yeah, so it's a cool song. And it is kind of, I think it's a style that, like, I think even though it sort of stands out on this one, I think a lot of the elements on this record all start to blend together in a more cohesive way on later releases. So it's interesting to see them be these disparate parts right now, because I do think that some of these, like the styles that they're using in some of these songs, kind of come together in a different way later on. And speaking of, Ashes, like you could say this about a lot of these songs in this record, but it's really hard to ignore um, that this is basically Bring Out Your Dead. But it's just sort of like the first draft for it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So much of it feels like it was reused to build that song, which is a better song.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I like the drum solo that's in this song. And this is also the other notable thing in this song is I think this is the first appearance of Jason doing that, like, sort of what becomes like a hallmark of his vocal stylings. Like he does that sort of like uh at some point in the song he like sort of changes his tone and starts sounding like some sort of like total madman. He's like on the edge. Like he does that in like a whole bunch of songs like later on. And this is sort of the first appearance of that, which I thought was notable just because it's something you'll hear again and again.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought this was another one that sounded like it was almost something that could have been on Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues, and I guess, like you were saying, it probably was the rough draft for Bring Out Your Dead. So
I mean, so much of it gets reused for that song. It's just
yeah.
that version of the song is much better.
Hmm.
All right, and that's going to do it for side one. So let's take a break and do some shout outs. Ben, what do you want to shout out?
Oh, I want to shout out the New York Times cooking section. It is honestly the best $2 I spend every month for a subscription to that. I make so many meals from it. Recently, I made a tasty pasta with chickpeas and lemon zest the other night. Mamma mia.
Yeah, you do. You definitely utilize the New York Times cooking section quite a bit. How many? Like, do you have like any kind of guess as to how many recipes you've made from it?
Oh my gosh, I mean, I've been using it since, like, 2015.
Oh wow,
Um, yeah, so, like,
shit.
hundreds at this
Okay,
point. I think hundreds plural is probably right. I've made a
okay,
lot of them.
right. So I guess I had thought that this was more of a like pandemic thing that you started using it a lot more.
No, no. I mean, I think so. Actually, it may not be that high because there was a period where I switched over to Washington Post because I had a Washington Post subscription for a little while, and so I just used their recipe section. But yeah, I think most of the time since 2015, I've been using the New York Times.
Are are they usually complicated? The recipes?
Um, I guess like you can find ones that aren't. I certainly skip anything that's got like more than like 20 ingredients or something
Oh,
like that. Like
Jesus,
once the ingredient list gets to a certain length, I'm like, fuck that shit.
for
And
real?
there's some stuff that like requires you to go to like, like certain like specific like ethnicities grocery stores, like you've got to go to the Asian supermarket or something like that, or you've got to go to the Mexican supermarket to get like ingredients for these things because they don't sell them in normal grocery stores.
Yeah.
So that stuff can be a pain in the butt. um but I think you can find some stuff that's got like less than 10 ingredients and not many steps that's pretty good. Like there's always like kind of creative combinations for things there. And yeah, I would recommend it to everybody. Who are you shouting out?
Shout out to the Internet Archive, because I think this is probably like a few weeks ago now. I think I sent you a text telling you that I was looking through some back issues of Maximum Rock and Roll. I know. It's like self-flagellation. Um, just reading some of it it's very humorous. These fucking scene warriors. Um, but I was just kind of like looking around. I was actually just looking. I was looking for like just any kind of interviews or whatever I could find. And so Maximum Rock and Roll. I think this is like it's a magazine that it should be preserved. It's really like it's a great part of like sort of like the history of punk, regardless of how absurd some of the writing is. But it's a great like time capsule. There's a lot of stuff in there, like old advertisements from record labels and reviews of tons of bands you've never heard of. And I mean, I was looking for interviews, but I couldn't. I was having a tough time finding some stuff. But unfortunately, I think so. Maximum Rock and Roll had, I think back in 2017, they were going to like they paid somebody to digitize all of their issues. So they were going to like have paying a company to go in and like just scan every single issue and make it available, which is amazing. But unfortunately, like not too long after they kind of got it going, the company kind of flaked on them, which is that fucking sucks. But the Internet Archive does seem to have a lot of issues. So I was flipping through some issues of it, and it's great. Like it's actually pretty easy to peruse. Like it is like you're holding an issue in your hands. You can flip through the pages and everything like that. But so this is going to lead into a game that I want to play with you.
Cool.
The game is called Maximum Obscurity. So
Okay.
I'm gonna read you a review published in an issue of Maximum Rock and Roll about an obscure band, and then I'll provide you three band names. They're all real. I didn't make up any of these names. And you just have to pick which band you think the review was written about.
Okay.
All right. Here's the first one. Crying, whiny singers are a dime a dozen. Total lookout material. Go float in a pool of boredom. Is this A, stink, B, spill, or C, suck?
I feel like if it was stink, there would have been a pun about it stinking. So I'm gonna guess spill.
It suck. All right, here's the second one. This one's interesting. Switzerland's favorite sugar oi band. This is one of those good time, rollicking, lighthearted oi bands that influences the audience more towards beer guzzling than brawling. Is it A, Thirsty Cows, B, Vanilla Muffins, or C, Toast?
I feel drawn towards vanilla muffins.
Correct. I mean, it says they're sugar oi, which, what the fuck is sugar oi?
I mean, my best guess is he's like talking about stuff like Coxbar, like kind of more poppy end of things.
Oh man. If that's, I've never heard that distinction. But that's cool.
Oh,
Right.
oh God. Okay. There's actually a song from this band, Sugar Oil Will Win. Or no, an album. So
All right. Yeah, maybe we'll give it a listen and see what the Vanilla Muffins are all about.
yeah, we should maybe for the next episode we'll also talk about the Vanilla Muffins record.
Yeah. There's some other pretty interesting bands. All right, third one. Backwards baseball cap and shorts wearing skater looking quasi metal sounding stuff that I don't really want to touch with the 10-foot chompers. Is it A, poop, B, B, pregnant men, or C, pimp slap?
Oh, I was expecting a 10-foot pole to be one of the answers there because of the 10-foot choppers.
Yeah. Oh man, 10-foot pole is not backwards baseball cap shorts wearing skater looking quasi metal.
What was the third one?
Pimp slap.
Yeah, pimp slap.
It's poop.
Wait, is there more to these reviews?
I pulled the most interesting bits. Most of them, for the most part, yeah. That's the beauty of these reviews is that they're all pretty much very, very short. But I was just pulling like the weirdest descriptions. But yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine if your band was called Poop? Like, I mean, it sounds like poop. Like that when you describe the music. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I feel like if you were gonna like be like a really like ugly sounding noise rock band, you could probably get away with naming your band Poop.
But in this case, I think it also works.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. It's like, you know, if they went so far as to record material, so that means that they had to have probably like played shows and stuff. So like, I just can't imagine promoting my band. It's like, what's your band called? Poop. Great. All right, review number 4. This motherfucker screams out venom of the ugliest kind. The mighty spaceman, the cosmic commander of wrestling, has joined this rebel firm. The only man alive that scares me. This man can put a flying figure 4 on you from 20 yards. Take the power of Poison Idea and the rebel flag of the South, and you got some scary thick neck rock on your hands. Is it A, Rancid Vat, B, The Padded Cell, or C, Notorious Grumble?
Oh, I want it to be Notorious Grumble.
Yeah. That's a great band name. Is that your guess?
Yeah.
It's Rancid Vat.
Rancid Vat. Oh man.
But I just like, what the fuck? He doesn't even explain in the review what he's like. I guess he's talking about the vocalist, who's I guess a wrestler of some kind. I have no idea. 4 noisy instrumental tracks with gratuitous drag racing sound effects recorded in a one-take, live in the studio basis. But do you care? Cool record. Listen to it in your car. Is it A, Half-Life, B, Jet Boys, or C, Mock Kung Fu?
Since the band is supposed to be from Japan, I'm gonna guess Half-Life.
It's C, Mock Kung Fu.
Oh, wow.
But I just it's a fascinating description. Gratuitous drag racing sound effects.
Like it sounds like Reverend Horton Heat or something dumb like that.
Ugh.
Speed racer aesthetic,
Yeah.
drag racing sounds. Oh,
All right. That'll do it for our game. Honestly, you did better than I expected. I feel like I would have gotten none of those right.
I was hoping for like one of the ones that you picked out as obscure to actually be something I had heard of. But
No, that's the whole idea.
you were going deep there.
You know what? This was all pulled from one issue. I didn't even really try that hard. That's how like great it was reading those reviews, because I looked at so many things and I was like, wow, this is kind of unbelievable. So I'm hoping, if we had a good time doing this one, we can do more of this game.
Yeah, this game I think this would be a fun game to play for sure.
Yeah. So
so
shout out to Maximum Rock and Roll for all your obscure bullshit. It's great.
Oh man. All right, side 2. So, in general, would you say you liked side 1 or side 2 more?
Side 1.
Yeah, same here. I don't know. Yeah, you want to talk about the songs that we liked more on this side first?
Yeah. I do want to start with Falter though, even though I don't think it's that great. Because I love the intro to the song. It's so awesome. Like, and they're basically just showing off.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's like all like they're like soloing and like, I don't know. It's really impressive. It's a really great intro. And then the song itself is just kind of whatever. It just, the vocal hooks felt really weak on this one. So it just didn't quite come together, but I love the intro to that song.
Yeah. I was kind of all I really wrote about it was A.
Right.
That was kind of after like a freaking stellar for the most part side 1.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is starting off rough. I mean, I thought that Away the music to Away sounded very good, but I did think that the lyrics seemed kind of dumb. I don't know how you felt about the lyrics to that song, but
yeah. Oh, I mean, it didn't really do much for me. The only real notes I have here is that I like the song itself, but yeah, the lyrics didn't quite do anything. I did like the very like Bad Religion style background vocals, and the vocal patterning that Jason uses towards the end is good, but we will definitely see that reused to much better effect on Suburban Teenage Wasteland. But yeah, overall, it's a decent song, but not one of my standouts. And then, yeah, I mean the next like 3 songs, I think I really like the guitar lead they have on Alone, and like the solo really makes me think of more Descendants. And I think that's generally my biggest criticism of these next 3 songs, especially, is they all feel like Descendants and Bad Religion songs. Whereas a lot of stuff on side 1 you started to hear more of like those like, I guess, all the influences coming together in a more cohesive way, and then towards the end of this you see a little bit less of that.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, at least from a lyrical point, liked Unclean and Mad Mad World.
Yeah.
I thought that the lyrics to Unclean were kind of, basically a song about war being bullshit. And then, it almost seemed like he was trying to make like the real subtle point too, that like, leaders get people to go die for like religion or race or something stupid like that, but like
Yeah.
they have other goals in mind, right? Like that's not why they're doing it, but they know that it's like an easy way to like get people to, march to their grave, sort of thing. So I thought lyrically that one was pretty interesting. And I thought
Yeah.
Man Mad World, I mean, I thought that song, like one of the notes I wrote for it was the record is starting to sound very samey at that point. But I
Yeah.
liked the lyrics because it was kind of just like a song about how absurd being alive is,
Yeah.
which is, I think, quite a bit deeper than most, you would, I guess, expect, based on kind of the caricature of Fat Records, for them to be kind of going into like some absurdist, uh, philosophy about life or dealing with those topics. I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that is sort of this is another sort of theme that Strung Out follows. I mean, that's another. Yeah, it's just I think overall the lyrics are all very much like like there's nothing here that like when I read the lyrics that I think, oh, this is so out of character for this band. Like as it goes on, like they write much better songs later. Um, but I think all the themes are pretty much set on this one record. You can kind of see a, a large portion of the spectrum that they sort of work within, and that's kind of cool.
Them and Propagandhi, I feel like, were the two records, at least of what we've the full lengths we've listened to so far, where lyrically, like they're not like I guess with the Lagwagon records. I mean, some of the songs on Trash were better, but like the lyrics aren't like anywhere as good as Joey Cape gets later on. Um, Whereas
Yeah.
here, I felt like the lyrics here, and like when we listen to the No Use for a Name EP, like those seem like light years away from where he'd be later on.
Yeah.
But like Propaganda and Strung Out seem to be like they knew where like the vision was there already. It seems,
Yes, I
Uh,
agree. Um, yeah, I mean, as far as Unclean, I feel like this is another appearance of a band cribbing Forbidden Beat. Like the end of it just definitely recalls Bad Religion's Forbidden Beat.
oh
Um,
man, I'll have to listen for that again because
it's
I fucking love the song Forbidden Beat.
and so did everybody else on Fat Records apparently. I mean it's a good one. Uh, and then Mad World, I again like that's sort of like the problem with the push and pull here. Like Unclean and Madman World, I like the lyrics. I just don't really think the songs are that strong.
Yeah.
Like the actual music itself is that great compared to what we already had on side one. Um, but I don't think that I'm not like. Are you a fan of the fade out when it comes to the ways like bands end songs? Because I'm generally not big on the fade out.
I feel like if it's used sparingly
Yes,
and at the right time,
right.
sure.
Yeah. And I thought that Mad World was a good example of like when it works. Like
Yeah.
I like the way it fades out. And but generally I like vastly prefer somebody to just fucking end it. Like don't the fade out drives me crazy a lot of
Yeah.
times. But
Yeah, for sure.
they use it here to good effect. Um,
I'll
especially
skip
because
it a lot. Like if I get to the end of
yeah,
the song and there's like 10 to 20 seconds of like fade out, I'll just skip to the next song.
yeah, yeah, totally. Um, and I think again, like it works here doubly so because the fade out goes into 14 days, the last track, and I think this is one of the better songs on this record. So Strung Out for me, um, they are one of the few bands that I think they're so consistently able to deliver absolutely amazing first and last songs on their records, especially
Oh,
last
fuck
songs.
yeah.
Yo, this band knows how to end a fucking record because so many, like some of the later records, like the much later ones, I'm not as into, but I can still listen to and find some tracks, and it's almost always the last track. The last track is almost always a fucking banger. It's fucking awesome. And I think that 14 Days is like, it's, they've pretty much been doing it since the beginning. I think it's a really good closing song. It's really strong.
So
And
the one thing I thought with it was that it sounds really familiar, like
yeah,
to a point where like it seems like maybe pieces of it were used again in later songs.
it was parts of it get recycled in Wrong Side of the Tracks, which is the last
that's what
song.
I thought. Yeah. That's what I thought. I was like, I think these songs, like this sounds like Wrong Side of the Tracks. I couldn't find the exact spot.
Right.
So I paused this song and went and listened to that real fast.
Yeah. So like parts of it. And I think that's largely where it ends up. But Wrong Side of the Tracks actually ends up pulling from this song, and I think there's one other one earlier in the record that there's a piece of that one that they sort of combine into Wrong Side of the Tracks, which I think is a way better ending song, but this one's still really good, and I really enjoyed it.
Why did I think that I was looking at like the track listing and I thought that this was not the last song, but I guess it is. But yeah, it Wrong Side of the Tracks is another great ending song. I guess I got confused by the track listing for the reissue for Suburban Teen Slam Blues and was
because they tacked on Jacqueline.
Okay, that's why I was confused.
Which that's fine, but as like Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues, Wrong Side of the Tracks, that's how you end a record. It's fucking great.
And I think like as far as their full lengths go, like what was the closing track to American Paradox? I remember it being good. Is it Cemetery or is it?
I think it is Cemetery. Let's check that real quick. So please hold while I check. Yes, it is Cemetery.
Yeah, and that's a great song. Interesting thing from the link I sent you from the No Echo interview. They were saying that song was not written before they got into the studio. It just kind of formed like impromptu.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think 14 Days is, definitely setting the, there's going to be a fucking awesome closer for
they
each
set
of
that
these
precedent.
records.
They set that precedent for opening tracks and closing tracks. Like it's they're so good at it. It's almost like it's unbelievable how consistent they are. They just they have a really good sense for what where they should, what tracks should be where in the like the list. But yeah, that's going to do it for side 2 and for this record in general.
Well, do you want to talk about the demos?
Yeah, we can talk. So like in the reissue, the remaster, they generously included all of the Skinny Years Before We Got Fat. So it's all the early material that they did. And there's probably like a whole other record's worth of material here, and it's just like all the early stuff from their early years. And honestly, like they're not bad. Like it is very, very heavy, like on the influence of Descendants and Bad Religion, like way more so than I think any of the material on the actual album.
For sure. Yeah. Like there were songs where I'm like, this sound like
yeah,
his voice almost sounded like Milo, like the guitar playing sounded very much like Descendants guitar playing.
definitely.
Yeah. So I mean it's pretty cool if you're interested in hearing that, I think. And then yeah, you pointed out that they have like just these weird like kind of thrown in like Black Sabbath style like intros and stuff on a couple of the songs.
Yeah, there's probably like 3 or so that were like, I mean, there's at least 2 songs. I think even it's probably Through My Fingers and the song Strung Out. Both of those start with these intros that I'm just like, oh, that's like straight up Black Sabbath. and they don't really integrate it very well. Like it's kind of like, oh, it's a cool intro, and then they do the song, and it suddenly launches into like Bad Religion. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some cool tracks, and there's even um, Support Your Troops. They actually do on Live in a Dive, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that from. I don't remember what it sounds like at the moment. I don't think I listened to that one
Yeah,
on the demos, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, those early songs. They're not bad by any stretch, really. Like there's and that's kind of my comment overall here. It's just like it's all like if you like that style of music, if you like Descendants and Bad Religion, and you listen to these old songs, you're probably not going to find anything you're like hate, but it's all very derivative. But there's some cool ideas, and you can see their how they're like they sort of evolve. Any other comments on the extra stuff added on the end?
No, no.
All right.
Let's move
So
on to the next section.
let's talk about our rival records. So now that we've shared our opinions on the entire album, let's expand the conversation and go outside of Fat Wreck by bringing in some other albums that came out around the same time as Another Day in Paradise, just so we can provide a little bit more context within the scene. So Ben, what are you bringing?
All right, so I picked the album "Life, Love, Regret" by Unbroken. So this is a significantly heavier than Another Day in Paradise. But the reason I picked it as a rival record is I think there's like almost kind of like a time is a flat circle sort of thing going on here. Like this came out the same year as Another Day in Paradise, much in the same way that Strung Out was bringing kind of lots of thrash metal into descend or into kind of like pop punk all of the Descendants. Unbroken was doing that with kind of the mid-tempo hardcore of the 90s. They were bringing in, at the time they were referred to as kind of like Slayercore, and Strung Out apparently in their early years did lots of Slayer covers. I learned reading, so it seems like a good rival record for that. So this record is very fucking dark. There's at least a couple songs that touch on some just really, really heavy, topics of suicide, etc. And it's a kind in a lot of ways a very depressive record, but it's also just fucking heavy as hell.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, for my money, I think the standout tracks on this are probably. I really love pretty much the entire record, but Final Expression, Blanket, and I really like the song Razor because I just absolutely love the guitar solo at the end of that song is fucking awesome.
That's like one of the notes that I have here. I do like Razor.
So the other reason I picked this record, though, is that Unbroken ends up being a pretty big influence on the types of bands that Strung Out ends up touring with in the early 2000s. So they end up touring with Poison the Well at some point. They tour with 18 Visions, etc. And so, 18 Visions in particular just put out a covers album that covers the song Blanket by Unbroken. So it's almost kind of like this record from 94 that came out at the same time ends up having kind of influence on Strung Out in the future, because some of those records that came out at that time, American Paradox and Exile and Oblivion, got really fucking heavy at times. So it's kind of interesting to see the way that like this record that came out at the same time probably had, in a very indirect way, some influence on where Strung Out would go in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So what'd you pick?
All right. We have talked about Bad Religion quite a bit for a band that we've never actually directly discussed.
Yeah.
like
especially on this episode.
Well, yeah. So Strung Out has always counted Bad Religion as one of their it's like the band's favorite band. I think is the way it was described one time. I feel like I read that maybe in like an old issue of Alternative Press or some shit. But they do absolutely love Bad Religion, which it's pretty obvious. So I figured I couldn't find anything else. I think the Unbroken that That's a good call. Because like when listening to it, I was like, yeah, it's got a really similar guitar tone. It's just that it's like half the speed, and
Yeah,
much
it's
just
much
like
slower. Yeah.
heavier. Yeah. And so that was definitely like a really good call. Um, but now I'm gonna bring what is probably like, I mean, it's absolutely one of my favorite Bad Religion records, Stranger Than Fiction. This is sort of the major label debut because they didn't really like, because Recipe for Hate wasn't really it was like they made that record and then released it through Epitaph, but then I think Atlantic bought it. Um, so that was
Okay,
technically.
I thought maybe it was one of those things where Atlantic did the CD and Epitaph did the record.
I'm not sure. I know that it was sort of like it became sort of like a joint release because it is listed as an Epitaph release, but then it's also a Atlantic release. So I think Atlantic probably, if anything, maybe they bought the CD
Oh, you're
version.
right. Yeah, Atlantic is the re-release. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and so Recipe for Hate, I think, is one of my least favorite Bad Religion records. I think it's actually a really weak album.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's got its standouts for sure. It does have some really great songs, but I think there are, if you listen to that one and then you listen to Stranger Than Fiction, they reuse parts of some of those songs to build way better songs on this one. Um, and I think Stranger Than Fiction is just fucking phenomenal. It is, I think the original version of it is like 15 tracks. There's not a single bad song in here,
No,
in my opinion. Like they
not
are
at all.
all memorable. They are all classic. Um, it's just fucking awesome. And it's so hard to pick a favorite when you look at all of them. But I have to say, the title track is one of my all-time favorite songs ever recorded. I
So
just
fucking good.
I
That title track is great.
love that song to death. I love the lyrics. Um, it's just fucking incredible, really. Incomplete. I like. There's so many examples of Graffin and Gerwitz writing just, I think, some of their best lyrics ever here.
Yeah, the lyrics are great. I I love the song Television.
Yeah. Like got Tim Armstrong doing a guest spot, and it's fucking great. I
Oh
love
man,
the
that
distortion on the guitar in that one is really great.
so many good songs here. Leave Mine to Me is a great song.
Yeah, it is.
Better Off Dead is another fucking great song.
Yep.
Hooray for Me, fucking great song.
Yeah. I just it's just like it's so good. Hooray for me and fuck you. It's fantastic. And like even like the lead single was Infected. It's a good song.
Yeah,
And traditionally like the singles from some of Bad Religion's records have not always been, they're usually somewhere towards uh the middle of like my favorite songs on any given record. Um but Infected's really good. Um there's Inner Logic, which always stands out to me because like there's so many fucking $10 words used in that song.
yeah.
um yeah, like What It Is has the all those like really great harmonies and stuff. The guitar solo in the middle is fucking awesome. And the 21st Century Digital Boy, it's a classic.
You prefer that one or the one on Against the Grain?
I don't know. I Maybe this one. I'm not sure. I
Did they
can't.
change the lyrics?
I think they might have changed them a little bit. Um I haven't listened to them back to back in quite a while. Uh, do you have a favorite song from this record?
Oh, yeah. I think that. I mean, it might just be Stranger Than Fiction. Like
Yeah,
like all the ones I was talking about are favorites off of this.
yeah,
I mean, I would say that this is certainly, at the very least, my third favorite Bad Religion record.
agreed.
Um, I think it's definitely the best major label record they put out, though I would say that Gray Race is not that far behind.
Yeah,
Um,
Gray Race is
and
also very good.
yeah, I feel like they like hit like a zone here with these two records for like doing their regular sound, but like poppy as hell.
Yeah, it's like they're doing it, I think, at a much higher level with a higher degree of polish. They're really putting in, I think, a lot of effort to make these songs as good as they possibly could be, and it shows through. And then there are 3 B-sides from this record that I think are all good. News from the Front. I mean, it's one of my favorite Bad Religion B-sides for sure. Like, it's kind of mind blowing that it didn't end up on a record. Did it? It's not anywhere else, I don't
I
think.
don't think so. No.
But I really, really love that song. And then you want to talk about Markovian Process? I know you do.
Oh yeah, so the song, the lyrics to this are fucking great. But basically, I got really excited because in graduate school, I spent a lot of time with Markov processes. Basically, the idea for what a Markovian process is, so we can, I guess, hopefully dispel some of the $10 word here, is refers to a process, usually some sort of like statistical random process, where what happens today is all you need to know to determine the probabilities of what's going to happen tomorrow. Is kind of most and today and tomorrow here I'm using in very loose terms. And so the song is all about look, if the damage today that we're seeing right now in the world, and I mean it's still just fucking relevant in 2021 right now, is a direct result of what we did in the past. And reality of the existence we live in is that what we do today is going to influence what the world looks like in the future. And so he's kind of really trying to spell that out very explicitly. Like it's not pure chance that determines where we end up, and chance maybe plays some role in it, but like it's very much the actions that we choose to do today are going to determine where we end up in the future.
Yeah.
So
that's
for
really interesting.
With the country kind of blanketed in smoke from West Coast fires at the moment,
Right.
still, I mean, I'm assuming that's why it's still so fucking like smoggy and hazy here in Cincinnati. It's kind of been like that for days now. And I read it was coming from, it's part of it was due to all the just insane amount of fires on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's fucked up. But yeah, it's extremely relevant. As most Bad Religion, most of their material remains, it's evergreen, I think, a lot of the topics, and that's what makes them such an enduring band in addition to being so influential. It's just, I think, also like the lyrical content it's always so prescient. It's always just so fucking well thought out. And honestly, Bad Religion definitely has their ups and downs over the years. They have their periods where I just don't really care about some of the records, and then they always seem to they have their peaks and valleys. And I think, I don't know about you, I think you probably weren't that interested when I talked to you, but their last couple of records I thought have been really good. I quite enjoyed their last one. So they're still out there doing it, man, and it's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at some of the pictures of them, you're just like, damn. It's like hard to. Sometimes it's hard to picture them as not being those guys on the cover of Stranger Than Fiction.
So I think during the pandemic, they recorded these kind of remote shows of just them playing with each of the decades of their material. So they did like an 80s only one, and then they did a 90s only one. Yeah. I don't know if they probably did the 2000s as well. I'm not sure. But I know that there was an 80s and a 90s one. So like the 80s one is just all the classic Bad Religion songs, basically.
I mean, that's the one. That would have been the one. There's definitely a lot of good stuff in the 90s, but the 80s, that's the show that I would want to go see for sure.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about your top 3 favorites, are the other 2 No Control and Suffer?
Yes. Yeah. And then probably put Gray Race at number 4, and then number 5 is just kind of like rotating, I would say, between
Process of Belief.
Could be Process of Belief, but I could just as easily throw in like the other original Epitaph records, like How Could Hell Be Any Worse, Against the Grain or Generator. I think that like all of those records are equally good. I just think No Control and Suffer are the best 80s records. Stranger Than Fiction and Gray Race are clearly the best things they did in the 90s.
Absolutely.
And then, like, you know, pretty much everything else they put on Epitaph up through Process of Belief, for me at least, is golden. I do lose interest in them after Process of Belief.
Yeah, I mean, they just go through a period where they seem like they're kind of just doing a slightly different variation on what they had done before. Like it's not bad, but it's not that interesting. Um and then they do have like certain records that I just feel like they try to do something different and it just doesn't always work. Empire Strikes First is just it tries to be so grandiose, I think, in a lot of points, and it just doesn't work. And New Maps of Hell, I think, was kind of like them trying to be more straightforward, which is fine. But the Descent of Man is definitely up there as like, what are you doing? I don't understand what some of this is. It's like almost got like they pull in like influences that I just don't really want in a Bad Religion song. But
what's your favorite of their badder records? Mine is New America.
Yeah, I would definitely say New America is my favorite of the weaker ones. It's got some good tracks on it.
Yeah. Very, very good songs on that record. Some bad ones too, objectively, but like
without a
I
doubt.
think like No Substance has
It's probably the worst one,
like
honestly.
like nothing good on it. I mean, there's probably some good songs on it.
I mean,
like,
just
it's so bad overall.
Fucking apt of like a record title. Like it's just it's really just like if there's any Bad Religion record that is worth completely forgetting about, it's that one.
For sure.
I just I just kind of wish it didn't exist. But you know, I think that the last couple have been really quite good. I thought Age of Unreason was fucking great.
I'll give them a try again. I mean, I did think that the Kids Are Alt-Right song was kind of funny. I listened to that.
Yeah. I think that's actually just like a one-off. I think that's just a single.
That's good. That shouldn't be on an album.
Yeah. And then I guess one more comment. Leaders and Followers. That's like the last B-side that we didn't mention. Good song, and notably, I that was I think I don't know if it was recorded for specifically the Clerks soundtrack, but I know that Kevin Smith definitely paid for it.
Feel like I've heard it somewhere else before.
Really?
I want to say it may appear on Tested.
Oh yeah, I guess it could have. But I know that I just know that like famously, Kevin Smith spent more money on the soundtrack than he did making the movie.
No, I guess it wasn't there. Maybe I just had a version. So I think I got a burned version of Stranger Than Fiction. Sorry,
okay.
But I may have just had the one with all of the extra tracks at the end.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
You know, interestingly enough, looking at the Stranger Than Fiction, the deluxe edition remastered, this Epitaph must have bought it back. It is an Epitaph release.
That makes sense. I mean, they can probably afford to at this point, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And again, it may be a thing. So I think with some major labels, they could also have given them like the rights to reissue it on vinyl too.
Yeah.
It seems weird that you would, although fuck it at this point, like why not? Like, I don't know how much money they'd really be making off of those CDs. So, if you want...
oh, for sure, yeah, that's a good point. All right, so let's do the summary. Final thoughts on Another Day in Paradise. Any
It
sort of
if you like Strung Out and you haven't listened to this record, you should. I think
right?
is yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's so much better than I remember it being.
it sounded like just like like it was recorded like in a trash can, right?
Yeah, it was pretty rough, that first CD version that I have. But like again, it's been so long since I've listened to it, I I listened to it a couple of times and I think I just discarded it. I just like it sits in a pile and never to be touched again. But the remaster has made these songs what they should have been in the first place.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah, they sound freaking great.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's given me some new favorites from my favorite era of Strung Out, because I definitely prefer 90s Strung Out to all the rest.
yeah. I really still like a lot of the songs on American Paradox, but after that, um,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not.
the real sea change with Strung Out is when Jim Cherry leaves.
Yeah.
Because then they really start to go into, I guess, they start to experiment more and they move away from going as fast as humanly possible. Because after Twisted by Design, they start to slow things down a little bit and experiment a little bit more, which is cool. I mean, there's still a lot of good stuff, but I for me, this is the golden period of Strung Out, is the middle to late '90s.
Yeah. What are your
So
favorite songs?
my favorite songs are In Harm's Way, Talking to Myself, and 14 Days, but I also really like Population Control. I think it's a great song.
Yeah, I think for me it was probably In Harm's Way and Population Control are probably my two favorites off of this. Yeah. Any fat trim? I mean, I've got picks and I think your picks might overlap but not be the same. Um
I say Unclean and Mad Mad World are like, just again, like that's the hard thing for me, is that like the record's so short. I don't necessarily feel like you have to cut anything. Um
yeah.
but I do think, like, I agreed with you before. Uh Towards the end of this record, it starts to sort of like, it starts to get a little samey, and it's those two songs kind of coming in back to back that that's where I start to kind of lose interest a little bit, even though the lyrics are better than the actual like song is.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what makes it maybe a little tough to decide what I'd prefer to cut. But so if I had to pick something, it's one of those two. Uh, but really, like,
Yeah.
it's such a short record.
So yeah, for me, I think the two that I had like the least good stuff to say about were Falter and Alone. Um
Yeah,
I would trim those off, but yeah, I think overall it was very good record. Um
yeah,
and I
definitely.
don't there wasn't anything I would say like other than those songs that I just thought felt kind of dull at that point in the record. I don't think there was anything I didn't really enjoy though.
Oh, absolutely not. Like there's really nothing that I encountered that I was just like, "Oh, I don't want that." Um it was all pretty good. And I was just, I mean, absolutely thrilled to see that Fat Mike had some restraint and didn't make him do a cover.
Yeah, I'm I'm actually shocked that there was no like. I mean, he would have probably had him cover like what, like Iron Maiden maybe,
Oh, I mean, if he was gonna have him cover anything, I feel like
or an
they would have
Ozzy song.
gone. Yeah, they probably would have gone like Black Sabbath or Ozzy. Uh which would have been cool, honestly. Like that would have been cool. I mean, they eventually do Bark at the Moon, which a lot of people really love that cover of Bark at the Moon. It's good. Um, but yeah, I think they would have covered some sort of metal band, I'm sure. All right, that's gonna do it for Another Day in Paradise. If you have any questions, comments, or most importantly, corrections on anything we might have gotten wrong, please email us at ontherecord@gmail.com so we can set the record straight in a future episode. And with that, we'll be back in 2 weeks with an EP episode where we're going to talk about a whole bunch of fucking EPs. We're gonna load it up here because we notably did skip over NoFX's The Longest Line. So we're gonna double back on that one. So we're gonna talk about that. 2 EPs from 88 Fingers Louie, Go Away and Wanted, and the EP from Guns and Wankers for Dancing and Listening. Until then, thanks for listening.